What was the gear you were using at the time?
It's my first drum is that was a weird brand. I don't even remember the name of the brand. So I remember I just put a pearl head on it because I thought it was so weird. It was just like this no brand thing. And but here's the thing. I remember the first cymbals I bought. They were those Zildjians Scimitar. They're called like.
I had those too.
Yeah.
Still have the ride.
The entry level Zildjians at the time, because it was all I could afford at the time. And but it's always the same thing. I sold the kit when I was maybe 14, 15, 13, 14 actually, and now I regret it. I wish I had it. You know, it's the same thing for everybody.
Yeah, of course.
And then I went on to get my first proper kit and stuff. But
what was the first proper?
The proper kit was it was a Tama Rockstar.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right, double bass, and that was amazing.
Course, yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of cymbals more, and
of course Tama was, you know, at the time the, you know, rock company.
Of course,
or
I mean,
metal company.
That's it. Of course, that was still a thing. Nick Menza, Lars, you had this Tama thing in your head, you know. That's a great company, of course. Also, I mean,
absolutely.
They know their stuff.
Yeah, and Dave Lombardo. And,
exactly. Lombi, all of them. So, that really worked for me as a kiddo.
And what was the first pro kit you ever owned?
The first really professional kit. Well, actually, that was a kit a friend of mine was building. He was building. He had a little custom company, and he did this typical thing like getting the Keller maple shells, like DW used to do back in the day. And so that was the first proper, real, first-class maple high-end shell kit I've had, and I used that until my endorsement started. So, but that was a big step up, of course, in terms of sound again.
Of course.
Quite amazing.
Let's talk about your first recording experience. That's kind of like losing virginity.
Of course. Well, then again, it's a little tricky. The cool thing is we started recording as kiddos with an 8-track tape recorder, Yamaha MT8X or something it was called. So you had a regular tape, and you could record 8 tracks on it. And this is another thing I think that was brilliant, because it was unlike today. You couldn't edit anything or so. So we had to try to play our best. And we had to balance things, so we learned a lot about recording at a very young age. But of course, it was not professional, but it prepared us for something. And then a lot of my friends, they studied at a place called SAE, like a recording facility. And they had to record bands as assignments for their studies. So even before things got professional, we were able to record at professional studios. And I think that prepared us quite a bit for the real first recording sessions, which then were not so dramatic.
Exactly. So this means you had this kind of like a prep situation.
I had a build-up. And at the time, I was already like a firm believer in metronome practice. So it also wasn't that thing like that you hear from a lot of people, like, okay, here's the click, and they're like, what? No. So that went well. But of course, I had my share of also difficult recording situations in the beginning, but you learn so much in these experiences because you're under the microscope.
It's true.
And then you realize, okay, I might be flamming here, I'm dragging here, speeding up there. It's a great experience.
It's good to record for yourself, because then it's not the situation where you're at a studio and, you know, it costs. You have to be on it all the time, and then it turns out there's problems, and then the producer has to just work you, and it's like, now you have to do this, now you have to do that. And if you're prepared, you know, prior to that, it's much easier.
Much easier, of course.
That's true. That's
but
probably what you should recommend if you do clinics. Do you do clinics? So you should recommend that to people.
Absolutely. It's actually something I actually really recommend to people. And here's the thing, I actually started going back to that also, just recording my practice for real and zooming in on the tracks. However, there's a danger to that, because you should not rely too much on your vision. I see that with a lot of producers. They just go in there, they zoom all the way in, and they look at the crit. And I always tell them, please, listen first, if it sounds good, you know? So it's cool to get in there for yourself and see, okay, when I'm doing this type of fill, or I'm going from the floor tom, that cymbal, I'm a little late. So I know that I gotta focus on that or work on that or do it differently. But then also you have to learn to trust your ears again, because it's very easy to get caught up with the visual. And that's not a good thing.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. Okay, let's talk about recording. When you first started, the computer was already present in the studios, right?
Absolutely.
But since then, you know, the technology has advanced.
Yes, exactly.
Immensely.
Yeah.
And so the question is, how do you approach the technology? Are you the one take guy, or do you prefer to, or at least a whole take guy, or do you do segments just to maintain the power and the energy of the track?
Focus? Yeah. I gotta be honest. I get it that people say, do the whole take, and because then you have the flow and stuff. But personally, if I go in with the mindset, I gotta do the whole take, then I'm playing it safe. Because it's more about not messing it up and delivering that whole take. And I think this comes from a time when people when they didn't have to play that kind of stuff that we have to play also.
Sure.
It's another thing if you're in the 70s, 80s, studio time is extremely expensive and you're playing normal beats, okay? And mainstream pop music, of course, then this approach makes sense. But if you're trying to record something interesting, progressive, whatever, I don't think you should limit yourself like that. So of course I'm doing like a run through of the song. Then we listen to it together with the people that I'm recording for, and they say, I like this groove or I like that kind of fill. And then I know, okay, this is what I'm going for now for real. And then we're doing, of course, not segments of like, I hate it when it's like 2 seconds. Not like that, but like a verse and a bridge. Or a pre-chorus and a chorus or whatever. You know? That's the kind of stuff I like. And then always, because you can be so focused and really concentrating on stuff. So I really like that.
Yeah, especially given the fact that the stuff you've recorded, which is what, Mekong Delta, right? But Rhapsody as well. I mean, it requires lots of, energy.
Lots of energy and focus.
It's really hard to maintain that level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And usually by the time that you record it, I mean, that stuff has been written for a couple of weeks, months, but it's a different thing if you go on a tour and then you practice for the tour, you have rehearsals, you play. Well, then I could probably go in there and do quite a convincing one take, and even then I personally wouldn't like it, I know that, but then I could do it. But the stuff is new, you're just working on it still, and you're like, okay, I think I can do it, but I need to focus. So then I really prefer working that way, absolutely.
So it's basically all about how you use this tool, right? The technology.
To be honest, I think that's the thing with anything. It's never the tool or the technology that is the problem. The problem is how we use it. You know? I mean, whatever. Making use of atomic energy is not a problem. It's a fantastic advancement in human development. But then you make a bomb out of it, right? And this is unnecessary. You should use it to have energy, but not make a bomb out of it. It's what we do with it, and that's the danger. We can be, us perfectionists now have tools at hand that easily can make something 100% perfect, and we have to stay away from it because it's not musical. So it's funny how the thing has changed. Back in the day, my goal was always to be as perfect as possible, and now my goal is to sound as human as possible when the recording is done, because I'm afraid that when everybody did their stuff and they edit shit, that suddenly it sounds like a mini programming, you know? And you can tell them whatever you want, but then they're alone in the studio and they might think, oh, okay, the guy is out, 100% quantized. You come back the next morning and you're like, wow, I play really well.
Did I do that?
Because you like to believe that you play like this, so you're like, I guess I played like that, wow. Pretty amazed at myself, but deep inside, sounds a little plastic. So I hate that, and I try to talk everybody out of it as much as I can. And for example, now in the new recording we did in Sweden with CyHra with my new band, we managed to really have my human feeling. We never went to quantize anything. It's certainly not 100%. Of course, you move a note every now and then because you might have a perfect take, close to perfect. One note is a little off.
Yeah.
But you want to keep the energy
slow
of the
snare
take.
or something like that, just a little bit behind.
You move that one a little bit, and that's been done already earlier on.
Even
they
in
just cut
analog.
Exactly. They would just cut things and move them. So it's not like we are the losers today where you have to move everything. And back in the day, everybody was just incredible heroes.
Yeah, or like if you do that means you have no talent or something like
exactly.
that.
I mean, it's easy to get caught up in these thoughts, but when you're hard on yourself, like, oh my God, I have to move everything now. It's just the problem is if you move something a little bit too much, then suddenly something else starts to sound off, because what you do is usually you have relation between the notes that you kind of make up yourself. So in that thing they make sense, then you start moving something that this suddenly doesn't make sense anymore. And that's why you should try to stay away from it as much as you can.
True.